Hi guys, Yuki here, back with Seduce Me 2 James's Route Part 2. I've basically effed everything up, so we're just gonna have to deal with our consequences. I feel terrible. I lost my person who was supposed to show me how to fight because I was being too nosy, and I guess Sarah just told me that the only way I can save James is if I give him the energy, and you know what? That's what I'm gonna do. Let's go! Kiss him again. I didn't want to tell him what happened. I didn't want him to know what was on my mind. I simply needed to help him in the only way I could, and I needed to not think about what was happening. I pulled him back in and kissed him with much harder, wrapping my arms behind his head and gripping him tightly. James didn't question me further and tightened his embrace around me, deepening the kiss. Our mouths battled in a dance of dominance, with James winning and me giving in to his passion. I found myself growing weak in the knees with the kiss between us, but at the same time I was floating in a mental cloud nine. My mind knew I could stop now. If he asked, I would come up with an excuse for my behavior, but I was slowly getting into the direction that was taken James towards. As one of his hands slid down on my back and hooked itself under my leg and behind my knee, I knew that this was my one chance to pull away before I let myself dive into a most needed sexual ride. Go all the way? I needed him. There was no point in stopping now. I quickly grasped his shoulders and pulled him, walking us back towards the bed and eventually falling back over it with his knees kneeling between my legs. My mind became mildly frantic, shutting out all the world, the war, the castle, and other demons. Everything from my mind. All I needed right now was James and his embrace to take me away from the night and make me forget. James slowly pulled away, a soft pant escaping him. As he stared down at me, his pupils were blown to pure love and lust, gazing down at me with a hazy stare. James, I need you right now. At the sight of James suddenly licking his lips, something in my core trembled. As his fingers slightly dragged themselves along my sides and gripped my waist, I felt myself melt into the mattress beneath me. I had unlocked the beast between James and I was ready to take him. Screw the world for now, the night belonged to us and us alone.
Allow me to indulge myself first.
Okay. I felt a hint of confusion run along my mind before suddenly feeling James pull up my shirt and ease it up, causing me to lift my arms above my head. What I didn't expect was him. Holy crap, what have I done? What I didn't expect was him tying the shirt across my wrist and pressing my hands back near the bedpost. Oh god. Oh god. Ah. What? Oh god. I'm gonna start hyperventilating right now. I'm not okay. A deep chuckle echoed from James's chest as he brushed a hand through my hair, making me gaze up into his eyes. He didn't have to enthrall me to make me weak before him, but as his beautiful whiskey eyes began to glow a brilliant gold, my body began to warm and shudder in desire. I couldn't stop the moan from escaping my lips as James slowly knelt down and planted his lips on my neck, dragging his tongue over my most sensitive spot and slightly nipping at it. I tilted my head to the side, giving him more space to work as he slowly began to ravage me. My legs naturally wrapped around his waist, pulling him closer to me, but as I did, James evilly rolled his lips against mine, grinding his teeth against mine, forcing us both to release a gasp at the feeling. All I could think about was James touching me, holding me, kissing me, delving deep into my mind. My mind was spinning in endless waves of desire, and I could barely control myself from pulling at my makeshift bindings and arcing my back against James's chest. James merely paid in kind by moving his kisses to my lips, passionately dancing his tongue against mine in a battle of dominance. I was his to take, conceding defeat to his tango. I naturally tried to lower my arms back down to recapture him between them, but James suddenly pulled away and forced my hands back above me, making me gasp and stare wide-eyed into James' dominant gaze. Oh my god.
Keep them there.
Oh god. Oh god. Ah! I didn't need to question him or his command. I nodded, willingly obeying despite knowing that his teasing would be the end of my sanity for the night. Oh gosh. I need a... Ah! A smirk of approval slowly grew on his lips before, and I apologized for probably screaming over James's voice, but holy crap! Ah! Grew on his lips before he came back down and captured my lips again. I could only grip the fabric of my shirt around my hands, fighting every urge to disobey James as he traveled his mouth down my neck and chest, licking and kissing over my skin. Every part of me that was exposed to James became his to claim. Every touch he made on my body, every finger that traced along my skin made me shudder in absolute delight. My feet dragged themselves against the back of James's legs, teasing him and trying to urge him to come closer. As he did, he took his sweet time undoing my pants and sliding them off of me before removing his own, leaving us bare for each other. James barely hovered his lips over mine, staring deep into my eyes as our passionate light began to take off. Our carnal desire for each other took over, unrelenting as we moaned through the night together in a loving and passionate crescendo. I let everything go, tearing through the shirt and eventually dragging my nails along his back. His pain hissed between his groans and pants made me lick my lips in an almost sadistic manner, but feeling him slow and tease me as punishment reminded me of who was in charge. The only sound to accompany our loving pleas and moans for each other was the creaking of the bed and the echo of our voices. We didn't give a damn of who heard us. The entire castle would know who we belonged to, each other. Even as we peeked together, the fixation of our love only intensified, driving us to each other and riding through the afterglow of our sex together. James managed to open his eyes, staring down at me in both exhaustion and love. As he ran a hand through my hair, I could only stare back, lost in his whiskey-colored eyes.
I am so unbelievably blessed to call you my own.
Me too, James. Our love fueled each other like a raging fire. We were destined to be together. Fuck anyone who said anything otherwise. We went to bed that night in each other's arms, enveloped by the peaceful dark of slumber. To my surprise, no nightmares came that night. I'm so sad. I ruined everything. I don't know what I'm gonna do anymore. I woke up that morning by myself, alone in bed. James was nowhere to be found, but I had to assume he was out training. We were getting closer and closer to the day, and we were going to go into battle with the Demon Lord, so it made sense for him to be on top of his training. However, I couldn't exactly stop the feeling of loneliness rushing through me. I at least wanted to see him off, but I had to understand this was preparation for a war. The reward was me going home after all. I stretched and rubbed my neck, massaging out the tired soreness from sleep in my body. Day 5 of the demon world. Had it really been that long? I wanted to imagine it like a vacation, but the situation was the polar opposite. This was a week away from my normalcy, despite it being barely normal in the first place. Besides, I was marrying a demon. There was nothing normal about that. How much time had gone by in the human world? Were people worried about me by now? Questions plagued my mind for a brief moment before I let out a sigh of defeat. I guess I'll figure it out when I get home. Whenever that is.
Don't worry, darling. You'll be home soon enough.
Oh, hey, Diana. I need a trainer. Will you train me? The shadow says I'm too nosy. Please, I don't want to be unprepared for the war. I turned my head to see Diana standing by the door with a plate of warm pancakes. I would never figure out how Diana managed to make them, but staring at the plate made my mouth water.
Something warm. Here.
Didn't we have this thing and hers where she didn't know how to make something, and then we taught her? I don't know if it was actually pancakes or waffles, but hey, there's that. Diana walked over and handed me the plate and the utensils to eat with. I didn't even ask to start eating. The first bite was heavenly, and the expression on my face apparently made Diana chuckle.
I'm glad you enjoy it.
I blushed and swallowed the bite full in my mouth before looking up at Diana. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Diana chuckled as I continued to eat happily. As the thought crossed my mind, I couldn't help but look up and observe Diana as I ate, what she made for me. Diana was really doing a lot to help me get home on top of having a war to deal with. I could tell that she had her reasons for doing so, but it seemed like there was a lot of work she had to do, and I felt a little sorry for her. Still, I was thankful that she was willing to help me leave this world for my own. Diana smiled a bit before looking away and sighing. What was on her mind?
Dear, may I ask you something?
Huh? Sure. What was Diana curious about? Diana turned her head to me and stared with a blank expression. I was a little concerned as to why I received such a stare, but I mentally shook it off.
Have you truly dealt with the angel problem? I haven't heard any word from them since last night, so I assume you have. But I need to be sure.
I stared at her for a moment, taking in her question. I wasn't sure how to answer because it wasn't clear if we managed to get away from the angel's sights or not. They didn't invade my dreams last night, that was for sure. But could that even be considered taking care of the problem? I took a breath before answering, going with my gut. I don't know. I truly didn't know. All I knew was that what Sarah told me, but I knew better than to tell Diana that just from what Sarah warned me about. Diana's eyebrows furrowed, but she nodded.
I see.
Diana stared at me, digging into my gaze to try and find some sort of answer in my eyes. But I remained steadfast. I didn't want to worry her anymore if James and I could handle it on our own. According to Sarah, we could. Diana sighed before turning to leave.
All right. May today go smoothly.
I nodded as she left. I hoped today would go smoothly as well. Another round of surprises would kill me. I slowly became more comfortable with the sword and began to do more tricks. I became more agile, more aware of my surroundings as I continued to slice through the dummy I decided to call Mal. I don't know why, but the name felt right for it. I pulled myself from the training grounds to the gates and through the castle doors. The interior was dark, yet the warm, ever-burning fires that served as lights illuminated the corridors eased my ability to navigate through the winding halls. The walk was peaceful and quiet on the way to my destination, until I heard familiar laughter tear through the walkway. Are you kidding me?
Simon! Get back here, Simon!
I barely had the chance to turn and see a small white critter run past me, followed by a pair of fluffy dark-haired heads in a mad chase. Whoa! Like a whirlwind, I practically spun around in place as Matthew and Noren rushed past me, trying not to collide into me while maintaining pursuit of their furry friend Simon Tabby.
Sorry!
Sorry!
Before I managed to shake off the dizzy spell I was under, Noren and Matthew had vanished into a nearby room, where I assumed they had chased their furry quarry. Holding my head to steady myself, I jumped at the multitude of clangs and thuds emanating from the room before the sounds ceased altogether. I tiptoed towards the door and peeked in, chasing my curiosity. Inside, Matthew and Noren surrounded the fluffball Simon on the war room table, gripping onto each side of the table and glaring hard at their target. They looked as if they were generals with how they stared down at the critter that pawed at nations beneath its feet. Noren broke the silence, wearing her best coaxing smile.
Come on, Simon. Let's go back to the room, yeah?
Matthew, not as patient as his wife, jumped onto the table and clasped both hands around Simon, grinning as Simon made a surprised squeak.
Gotcha!
A triumphant grin stretched across Matthew's face as he started to relish in his success. Noren smirked but dropped her expression as she quickly turned wide-eyed and frantic.
Wait, he still has the...
Ow! Ow!
The knife? Dang. Ouch. The glint of tiny steel told me more than enough. Matthew momentarily forgot that Simon wielded a knife. It was blunt, meant as a toy imitation, yes, but in the paws of Simon it was more than enough to hurt. Matthew released his grip from Simon, clutching his hand and hissing in pain as Noren swiftly replaced his former hold on the doll. She lunged across the table, wrapping her arms around the toy's torso and trapping Simon's little arms between her fingers, rendering his weapon useless.
Didn't think of that, did you, Simon?
Simon deflated with a squeal of defeat before becoming still in Noren's hands, turning into a doll once more. With a sigh, Noren and Matthew finally eased and collapsed onto the table, shutting their eyes from exhaustion.
Finally, we can relax.
Yeah, geez, that took forever.
Noren rolled onto her back on the table and stared at the ceiling, bringing Simon to her chest and letting out another tired sigh. Matthew chuckled lightly before lying beside her, doing the same. It was rare to see either of these two without their usual buzz of excitement. Noren lazily laid her arm across Matthew's face in an attempt to run her hand through his hair, to which Matthew returned the gesture with an exaggerated plop of his on onto her face to caress her cheek. Laughter spilled out from them, their contagious chuckles making it hard for me to stifle the bubbly giggles rising in my throat. I held back my laugh, biting my lip with a wide smile. Even when they looked exhausted, I couldn't help but feel light and giddy from watching them. Noren always seemed to be bursting with energy whenever she flitted around the other wives, and I, eager to embark on adventures whether it be across the world or to a nearby diner at 3 in the morning. Yet, I knew there were moments when her waves of energy ebbed, just like now. Despite those times, she was a master at quick quips and one-liners that it seemed only Matthew could keep up with her with his own wit and creative power. They were perfect friends, so aligned in instinct that it was easy to see them as husband and wife. Noren's eyes lit up as a flash of inspiration dawned on her. She smirked and turned to look at Matthew with a quirked brow.
So, when is Simon going to have a suitor?
Okay.
Huh?
Matthew looked over at her in a mixed shock and fear, while Noren held back a laugh in her cheeks. At his expression, Matthew shook his head violently.
No way! There's no way I'm gonna give him another reason to run around and go crazy, and give us another doll like that to deal with.
Ah. Oh wait, that's the wrong one.
What? Oh, come on! Imagine the fun of designing his new friend. All the little details, from the color of its eyes to the fluff of its fur. Plus, think of all the adventures they'd have together. So much fun that it might even distract Simon from messing with us.
Well, I mean, I guess you're right, but...
Matthew brought a hand to his chin so he looked deep in thought over the suggestion. She looked on expectantly, waiting for his final answer before her eyes caught his hand shifting over his mouth to hide his growing smirk. Noren gave a toothy grin to Matthew before gently pinching and pulling his cheeks.
Come on, one more go at a living toy. And look, you're smiling too, you totally wanna.
Matthew stuck out his grip and turned to lick Noren's hand to gross her out and release her grip on his cheek. She flinched but remained resolute, nearly laughing at his attempt and teasing his face harder. I bit my lip to stop myself from laughing, but watching the two struggle for the upper hand made it hard to not imagine if they were like this all the time. It even became apparent to me that Noren actually dominated the relationship with Matthew following her, and not surprisingly, Matthew seemed to enjoy that, peppering in his own competitive bursts and challenges to her lead.
You think a little spit will scare me?
Alright, I'll do it, okay?
Satisfied, Noren finally released her hold on his cheek. She smiled at her husband before flopping down with her back flat against the table, breathing out a contented sigh.
I love you. You know that, right?
Matthew took a moment to rub his cheek before looking down at her with a grin of his own, leaning down and kissing her nose and making her sputter and widen her eyes.
Of course I do. You know I love you, right, Noren?
A mere second passed between them before Noren wrapped her arms around Matthew's neck and pulled him down, locking her lips to his and making him flail from losing his balance. Luckily, he planted his hands on the table beside her head so he didn't crush her. I want to go now. Matthew relaxed in the kiss and closed his eyes, melting in before Noren's arms relaxed and let him pull away slightly to look into her eyes. They stared at each other with goofy smiles as each of them began to blush a cute pink color.
I know you do, Matthew. I couldn't live without your warm hugs, or your dorky face. You're the best.
I want to go now.
I'm pretty sure you're the best. I don't know how you did it. Waiting for me and looking for me for so long.
The first 6 times were hard, yeah, but I'd definitely spend another 9 searching for you.
My heart ached as well, nostalgic for the sorely missed normal that we had in the human world, but smiled at the sight of them both curled up in one another's jackets. I only heard bits and pieces from them, but from where I've pieced together, I could tell that their first meeting wasn't as Matthew and Noren. They've waited so long to meet one another. Now that they were together, I hardly saw them more than an arm's length apart. Both of them were adorable together, and I could tell that life was going to be full of adventures for them, regardless of who truly was in the lead and where their energy took them. They relished in the sweetness before Noren's eyes became half-lidded and her smile turned wicked.
So, there's no one around, and I don't feel like heading back just yet.
I need to leave!
Right here? But Simon's here. He could be watching.
Like he hasn't intentionally walked in on us before and threw glitter all over your back.
Okay. But can we, turn him around or put him in a drawer?
Are you getting shy on me?
Ah, jeez. Noren smiled, ready to one-up her love, but Matthew's eyes darkened as a competitive fire burned inside him, but his mouth twitched into a sly smirk.
Oh, don't think I'm gonna be the shy one tonight. I never back down from a challenge.
I gasped, feeling my ears burn from secondhand embarrassment and fighting my urge to walk in and prevent them from ruining the war room any more than they have with their shenanigans. Oh gosh, that's even worse. Noren perked up at my surprised sound, glancing over to the door where I stood and shot me a mischievous smile with a finger to her lips. I finally turned and left, needing to continue my own journey to my room and clear any intention of returning to that room again. Yeah, that's gonna be awkward. Oops. Well. The decor of the halls greeted me as I walked through the corridors, wanting to simply lie down and rest my sore limbs. A muffled giggle, however, caught my attention as I walked past the door that was left open. Out of curiosity, I leaned into the door and found the source of the sound. Oh man, am I gonna have to go through each and every one of these guys' love story because I messed up? Because if so, I suck. I mean, not saying that their love stories is bad, I'm just saying that rather focus on trading. Inside were Eric and Irene, a pair that emanated charm and sophistication. They were settled at a balcony carved out of the room that they were lounging in. From the looks of it, it was just an open pocket room, brightened and probably used for private affairs. Eric and Irene stood by the railing of the balcony, staring out into the sky and smiling at the clean air.
I won't lie. I've missed this world a bit.
That makes only one of us, my love.
Oh, come now. You cannot tell me that you don't miss being here.
Irene turned and leaned back against the railing, giving Eric a smug smile. Irene had always been a mystery to me. I was convinced that she was a succubus, but she wouldn't reveal to me what she really was, which added more mystery to her flair. She was definitely pro-demon, always dropping out of glamour whenever she was alone or with any of our group. But she respected humans enough to work her way to the top of the financial hierarchy, the old-fashioned way. When Eric told me about her, I could practically feel the love and devotion he had for her with each word he described her with. While I was still his princess, she was his queen and love. Eric chuckled as Irene and shook his head, still facing the sky.
This world is too full of boring or terrible memories. I would rather be back in the human world. Nothing to bother us as we enjoy the world together.
Irene let out a small laugh before sliding closer to Eric, laying her head on his shoulder and staring at the ground.
Eric, there is one thing that bothers me.
Oh? What is it, my love?
Irene pressed her lips together. I could see a moment of hesitation and doubt form in her eyes before she let her feelings out into the air.
Why are you so close to that girl? Your princess. I understand your closeness to your family, but she is your brother's intended.
My heart lurched at the mention. Eric looked at her and took a moment before kissing her head sweetly, wrapping an arm around her stomach and hugging her to him.
Didn't I tell you before? She saved my life, my brother's lives. I owe her more than any human in the human world.
I understand that, but something about the way you speak about her makes it seem like you love her as much as your brother does.
Oh. I stared at Irene and Eric in shock. He spoke about me in that way? Why? I was marrying his brother and he was married to her. That made no sense. I think he just, in this dimension, he just thinks of me as, like, I guess, his sister. At Eric's laugh, I broke from my thoughts, as did Irene, gasping as he pulled her closer, leaning his forehead to hers.
Is my queen becoming jealous of a human girl?
What of it?
I find it rather adorable and endearing, despite your concern being completely unjustified. Are you truly concerned about me being close to her?
And if I said yes?
A moment of deep silence passed between them as Eric buried his gaze into Irene's eyes, as she did the same to him. Despite the light tension in the air, I knew that Eric didn't see me the way he saw her. He devoted himself to her long before the moment he said "I do" at their wedding, and despite Eric having some charismatic tendencies, he was never one to betray the trust of someone he cared about. Eric leaned in and captured Irene's lips, making her release a sweetly pleasured sigh against him and lovingly grasped his shoulders. As he slowly pulled away, he gave her a genuine smile.
There is no one I love and care for more in this universe than you, my beautiful Maismere. You completely have my heart, my mind, my body, and my soul. And there is no one who can take that away from you.
Irene stared in Eric's eyes, reading him and becoming lost within them at once. Despite her being the one who controlled the relationship, there were often times where she became the one who followed the one she loved. Irene straightened up in Eric's arms, wrapping her arms around his head and nuzzled her nose against his.
My wonderful, beautiful, radiant Maismere. I will be yours now, and in purgatory when we finally rest. If you ever leave my side, I would spend an eternity looking for you.
Aww.
If you ever went missing, I would scour the entire human world and demon world for you. I am yours as you are mine, Uzaris.
I really like her voice. The pair smiled lovingly and simply relaxed in each other's embrace. It was rather sweet to see them together. Even as they shared vows in the human world, I could tell their love truly went beyond just their wedding rings. Eric smirked a bit before leaning his head beside her face, whispering a very quiet note into her ear. A rough pink blush ran across her cheeks, causing her to smack his shoulder.
You absolute tease. I swear you say these things just to make me blush. I won't fall for it.
I don't tease. I make promises.
Another smack to the shoulder made Eric lighten his embrace a bit, and he laughed while Irene pressed her lips together in a fake attempt to be angry at him. If I knew anything about Irene, it was that she truly loved Eric from the bottom of her heart. I decided to leave them be and continued heading towards my room. The day at last ended, and I wound up slowly walking towards my room. I was tired and ready to hit the pillow, but as I entered, I stared at who was there waiting for me. Sarah? Sarah stood in the middle of the room, staring hard at me as if I had done something wrong.
Do you know what a stone destiny is?
Wait, didn't I just do this already? A stone destiny? I had never heard of such a thing. Did it have something to do with the angels? I tilted my head, making Sarah sigh and lower his head.
A stone destiny binds a person's entire life towards a specific direction. It could be for good, it could be for evil. However, when a stone destiny is set, Almost nothing can stop it from taking its course.
Why are you bringing this up? Sarah looked up at me and closed his eyes, resolving to explain to me whatever was on his mind. What he told me, however, shocked me.
I believe that your fiancé is locked in a stone destiny.
What? That made no sense. James was locked in a stone destiny? What did that have to do with anything? Where did this come from? As Sarah watched my expression, he continued to speak.
There is only one way to forge a stone destiny, by making a deal with angels. If someone is willing to give angels something worthy, the angels can set and seal someone's life as if in stone. If anything threatens to destroy that destiny, the angels step in.
That was it. That was why the angels were after me. If James was tied to a stone destiny, then the only reason they were attacking me was because I was in the way of his fate. How could that be, though? What was his destiny? To become the next demon lord? Something in my mind clicked at the thought. Of course, that had to be it. I had taken James away from his destiny and was about to marry him. Of course they would be after me. I sat on my bed, shocked and astonished at the news. I felt somewhat relieved that James and I had found a way to stop them, but I still felt the weight of the new information sinking into my thoughts. Sarah stepped towards the door and closed it, looking to me.
Breaking a stone destiny is nearly impossible. Nearly.
I looked up at him, anxiousness growing as he repeated the word. There was a way to fix this and set James free? Then how can we set him free from it?
By giving him enough energy to do so himself.
Yeah, I'm so sure I did this before. Am I in a loop? I stared. It made sense, but giving him energy meant probably sleeping with him. I didn't have much of a problem with it, but sex wasn't something I wanted to do just because I had it to be done. It was better to make love when the people involved were in the mood to do so rather than because they had to. Sarah turned back to the door.
He is a powerful incubus, but he isn't powerful enough to break through his destiny unless you help him.
Before he left, however, I stopped him. Something seemed off with Sarah being one to tell me. Sarah, why are you telling this instead of Diana telling me?
She isn't aware of it. Not many demons know of it or even believe it to be an actual occurrence.
Then how do you know about it? Sarah seemed to stand still, letting silence linger in the air. The room began to feel off as Sarah stood in his place. I had this feeling felt before, but I couldn't pin down where. Finally, Sarah slowly turned his head to me, causing me to silently gasp at what was revealed. In his gold eyes were crosses glowing in a dark black where his pupils were. The feeling of feathers once again danced around me, causing me to quiver slightly.
Does that answer your question?
I nodded slowly but frightfully. Sarah was an angel? How? He looked like a demon. No one mentioned him being anything close to an angel other than him using holding magic. Did Diana not know either? How was this hidden? Sarah closed his eyes and relaxed a bit as he pressed his lips into a fine line.
I love my lady. I would follow her to the ends of the 5 worlds if she demanded it of me. To see the man she was bound to wed here, locked by a destiny that would have taken my love away long ago. It's maddening. The longer he stays here, the more dangerous his destiny becomes. I've seen visions of what would come to pass if his destiny is fulfilled, and I will do everything to make sure that doesn't happen.
I could see the jealousy in Sarah's eyes once again. Something burned heavily in Sarah's gaze and didn't dare fade away as he gripped the spear in his white-knuckled grip.
My lady is a queen deserving of the world, not a harem girl for him to ravage in a cage.
Memories of the nightmare I had long ago flickered in my head. Diana had been in a cage beside me. Did Sarah see the same thing? I didn't get the chance to ask. Sarah relaxed a bit and glared at me. I could feel a shiver rake up my spine as his words shook my core.
Do not speak of what I am to anyone, or I will set your destiny to die at your husband's hand.
Okay. Without letting me reply, Sarah turned and left the room, leaving me alone to absorb what had happened. I felt the air in the room slowly drift back to normal, but I felt nowhere close to it. How was this happening? Why was this happening? Everything began to clash in my head, causing me to pound heavily in confusion and stress. My thoughts were interrupted as the door opened again, revealing James.
Love? Are you alright?
Yeah, I've done this before. Am I in the cycle? James. I am so sure of this. What is going on? do the same thing again? I'm so confused. Yeah, all of this happened before. Don't know. Skip. Oh my gosh, I am in a loop. Oh no, I am in a loop. Oh no! Oh, well, that happened already, and I stop myself from thinking of all these thoughts when I hear the soft pattering of footsteps walking to an interesting rhythm, like a waltz. Huh? I instinctively followed the noise to the door leading to the grand hall. The door was barely open or cracked, but I still managed to echo the sounds of waltzing from it, leading to a gaze upon who was forming the sound. Oh man, oh my heart, no, I can't take this anymore! As my eyes locked into Damian and Twilight, my mind went blank. I knew how to avoid Damian's mind reading, and it had become a natural instinct for me to do whenever I saw him. Still, I watched as Damian and Twilight danced around the room in a sweet and slow waltz, with Twilight blushing a deep crimson and Damian smiling comfortingly to his wife. It was adorable to watch. Twilight and Damian's marriage was still new. The wedding had only been a few months ago. Twilight was still getting used to the idea of being part of the family, but every day seemed to open her up a bit more to Damian's brothers and to me. I had hoped one day to get close enough to see her more energetic side, which Damian said and the other wives claimed she had, but it would still take time. Still, seeing her be so shy in Damian's arms seemed rather sweet.
Damian, I don't think I can do this. I can't focus like this.
Relax, Twyla. I promise you won't trip.
If you say so.
Okay, Twyla, focus slowly on the steps she was making, most likely to forget that Damian was holding her so close to him. Damian simply chuckled before dipping her back, making her grip onto him in the gas.
Damian, don't be a jerk!
Relax.
Oh. At least I get I don't get best end, but I get good end. Now that covers the whole scrapbook of what's it called? You know, just the regular one, not really focused on any certain incubus, just their things, whatever it's called. Slowly, Damian lifted Twyla back up, locking eyes with her and releasing her hand to cup her cheek.
You've been nervous this whole time we've been here. What's wrong?
Twyla bit her lip and nuzzled Damian's hand, closing her eyes. I furrowed my eyebrows. What was going on with Twyla?
I can't help it, Damian. I mean, we're in the demon world, for Christ's sake.
I could tell Damian wasn't going to let it go. Twyla looked up at him at last and cupped his hands in hers, leaning further into his palm. He's probably told her all the terrible things that happened to him here, and she probably feels like she shouldn't even be here, because she feels like this will cause more pain for Damian, and they should leave as fast as they can because she doesn't want him to be here. That's my guess.
You can read my mind. You know what I'm going to say.
I do, but I'd rather hear you say it.
Why?
Because it will make you feel better, I know it.
A single moment passed before Twyla let out a small sigh and nodded. As she did, Damian led them back to the slow waltz, simple enough for Twyla to follow along and keep talking.
Part of me just... I don't know. It feels like it belongs here in this world. Like I belong here. Damian, I've never felt so alive before, but I know that the human world is my home.
Damian nodded and spun her around slightly. As he did, Twilight took a breath, physically relaxing a bit more and becoming lost in the dance Damian was leading her through.
But this place also brought you so many bad memories, so I feel terrible for feeling at home here. I don't know, Damian. I know that it's because I'm only half human, but...
Yeah, I figured. I stared wide-eyed at Twilight. She was half demon? What kind of demon was she? Questions gathered in my chest, remembering that Damian was still able to hear my thoughts. Damian, however, only smiled and pulled Twilight closer to him, making her gasp.
Twilight, it's all right. I promise I'm okay.
But Damian, you want to be human.
And what does that have to do with anything?
Damian...
Finally, Twilight stopped dancing and stood still, looking up to her husband and with serious eyes. Damian stared back, listening intently.
You married me even though I'm technically Fae. You love me even though I'm proud of who I am. I don't want to alienate you because I find this world to be as beautiful as my mother said it would be.
Silence passed once again between them. I felt sorry for Twilight. She seemed serious about the whole ordeal, but Damian's simple smile practically melted the tension from the air.
This world is your home too. As much as I hated being here, this world was the place I was born in.
Damian brought Twilight's hand to his lips, pressing his love on her wrist and moved to gently place a kiss on her forehead, making the blush on her face intensify at the intimate gesture. He chuckled at how he elicited such a response from his wife before nuzzling her nose to nose.
But if I'm with you, then I can make brand new memories wherever we are. Even here in the demon world. The past is the past. My future is with you.
My heart instantly melted at the words. It was so sweet to hear Damian say that to Twilight. I could hardly contain myself. Twilight stared up at Damian, flattered and in awe. I couldn't help but smile at the sight. Damian really did love her, and she indeed loved him enough to care about his feelings.
I love you, Damian.
I love you too.
What surprised me was Twilight gently leaning up and brushing her lips against Damian's, catching him off guard and as well before he pressed back and kissed her lovingly. I nearly squealed at the sight of how cute they were. Damian wrapped his arms around her waist as she tangled her own around his neck. Leaning back into the dance embrace they were in and becoming absorbed within each other. I took that moment to quickly sneak away, hoping that Damian wouldn't catch me peeping. I finally arrived at my room, but as soon as I entered, something wasn't right. I felt something was off from stepping inside, but there was no one there. Was I just exhausted and imagining things? I cautiously entered and looked around. Nothing seemed to be out of place visually, but my nerves felt on edge. What was happening? Hello? Despite feeling silly speaking to an empty room, I had to see if anything or anyone would respond. Maybe they were hiding. Maybe something was creeping around and would be surprised by my voice. There was no response, but I still didn't feel easy. Something was seriously wrong. Investigate? I shook my fear from my mind and took a breath. It was not something to be scared about. I was sure of it. I walked further into the room only to hear the door slam shut. I turned around, seeing the door close, making me panic a bit. Hey! Before I could walk over, however, I felt the energy in the room freeze. What? I looked around and I was unsure what to think. Whatever was here had succeeded in trapping me, so I needed to deal with whatever it was. Baring my teeth and stepping further into the room, I scanned the room for any movement. Who's there? What do you want?
You do not belong here, human.
Gosh, dang it. Goodbye, cruel world. The voice that replied sent fear rushing through my body. I looked around to try and pin down the direction of the voice, but it seemed to just echo around the room. Who are you? What do you want?
You meddle in things beyond your comprehension. Why must you attempt to toy with destiny?
I remained silent for a moment. This was an angel speaking in English to me. I didn't know why it was speaking to me now after they had attempted to wipe my memories and haunt me. Still, at least I would be able to learn more as to why. I glared into the room and continued to look around. I'm not toying with anything. James chose to stay with me, and he and I are going to be married.
Raestro's fate has been set. You have no place in it.
Before I could react, I felt myself becoming enveloped in chains. I looked down to see my entire body wrapped in lines of white and gold chains, squeezing me tightly, and I winced in pain.
Your mind is protected, but the spell will not last. Once it is faded, you will be properly baptized.
No!
Love, what is going on in there?
I stared at the door, hearing James bang against it from the other side. The door was locked from the outside, too? I glared at the door before shutting my eyes and calling out his true name. Raestrow! With a flash of bright light, James appeared inside the room, shocked but suddenly enraged at seeing me in chains. Before he could rush towards to help me, however, his body was wrapped in chains as well. No!
Ah! What is this?
You cannot defy your destiny, demon.
My destiny?
I pulled against the chains around me, hoping to somehow break free. Despite it being to no avail, I continued to thrash and pull.
Your destiny is to rule this world. You cannot escape it.
My destiny is of my own making!
Your destiny is set in stone.
The room around us began to glow and blind us as we were forced to shut our eyes tightly. Gah!
No matter. We will cleanse you both soon enough.
I could feel the chains drag me beneath the ground into some sort of space. Cold waves rushed against my skin as I was dragged through a void I could not see. Where were we being taken? I didn't know how long I was out for, but I had no way to tell how long I had been unconscious. All I knew was that James and I were in trouble. What was going to happen now that we were now prisoners of the angels? Nervousness sank into my mind as I continued to I could do nothing but float into the empty darkness created by the angels who had confined me into a cocoon of chains. Slowly, my nerves came back to life, and I found myself awakening from the dark. What I didn't expect was to no longer feel chains around me, but soft, familiar slope beneath me. What the? I rubbed my eyes and slowly opened them to see a familiar gray ceiling. It couldn't be. No! Sitting up, my heart caught in my chest. I was back in my room. I was in the human world. How was this possible? Where was James? I jumped out of my bed and rushed for the door, pulling it open. James? I called out, but heard no response. I rushed to the lobby and looked around to see it still intact. The air felt familiar and real, and I wasn't imagining things. I couldn't have been. At the same time, I knew that the curse hadn't been lifted. I couldn't have returned to the human world unless I died. Was I dead? I began to panic. What was going on? Oh God, no! I don't want to! I don't know. I think I'm gonna stop here. I feel terrible. I messed up so bad. I guess, thank you so much for watching, and we shall see what happens next, even though I'm too scared. I broke the game. And I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!